Hey guys, Celeste from the future here to add some quick contextual notes. As many of you know, there's a genocide occurring in Palestine at the behest of the nation of Israel. That being said, since I recorded this episode, several of the cast members of Stranger Things came out in support of Israel, outing themselves as Zionists. Here at Astrophic, we do not support colonization or imperialism, and those efforts include boycotting. While I cannot reverse time to undo the creation of these episodes, I hope you can understand the simple fact that the only reason I'm posting episodes on characters from Stranger Things still is because they were already recorded. I had written episodes for most of the characters, but due to this turn of events, I will be trashing the rest of those scripts. I'll be replacing all of the Stranger Things episodes that weren't recorded yet with characters from the Hunger Games. Every Stranger Things focused episode from this point on will also have this message playing before it. Additionally, if you'd like to see how you can help the people of Palestine, please see the resources in my link tree in the show notes. From the land to the sea, Palestine will be free. And remember, we're not free until everyone is. Take care of each other. Thank you, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to Astrophic, your dose of fun, relatable astrology content where we apply astrology to fictional characters to find out why they're like that. I'm your host, Celeste V, and this week we're talking about Nancy Wheeler of hit Netflix show Stranger Things, which is, as of recording, approaching its fifth and final season. This season of Astrophic, we are talking about almost the entire cast of characters in Stranger Things, and Nancy Wheeler is up there in definitely top 5 fave characters for me, at least in the Stranger Things franchise. I had a lot of fun making her little chart, but before we get into that, I'm recording this the weekend after Thanksgiving, which is hilarious because the episodes that everyone is listening to right now has been listening to for the past couple of months were all recorded like in the summer. I took a very long break from recording, I guess. I was really focused on school for a while, but the end of the semester is approaching very rapidly, and I'm very far ahead in my work, which is a new and a shocker to me. Leave it to me to get it together in my senior year of college. Anyway, I have more time to dedicate to the podcast now. I anticipate that I will be editing and recording a lot in the next couple of months, hopefully enough to get us through most of next year. Because next year I apply to PhD programs and I'm hoping for another summer research gig. If the summer research gig goes well, I could be doing a lot of Astrophic during then too. Anyways, enough about me. Those are my life updates. What's new with you? This isn't an actual conversation, so I'm gonna move on. Let's just get down into it, alright? Nancy Wheeler, final girl for the ages, truly. And I know that she's not really a final girl. She's never the last one alive. Stranger Things can't leave people dead, apparently, except for Bob. R.I.P. Bob and Barbara. Oh, Barbara. We're probably going to be talking a lot about Barbara in this episode. I wrote my notes for this episode many, many, many moons ago, so bear with me as I recall what I was meaning. My notes can be very cryptic. All right, let's jump into it. Let's start with her rising sign. This is how we do it. We start with rising, we set up the houses, we go through. I gave her an Aries rising because literally, of course I would. Why wouldn't I? She's an absolutely trailblazing badass bitch who sees who her mom is and refuses to end up like her and is prompted by her mom to not end up like her. They have that like really good heart to heart, I think, in season 2. Oh my god, season 2. Underrated fucking season. Jesus. Anyways, her Aries rising is also why she's too good for any of the boys that she's with. She's light years ahead of them in every aspect of life except maybe dependency. She can be a little bit codependent, I think. She just gets very comfortable with somebody and like you know, wants them there all the time and stuff. She's kind of been growing out of that, you know, as she is ending high school and starting real life, and also has fought like just like a bunch of monsters. Nancy, always strapped, Wheeler, gotta love her. I say that she's too good for any of the boys that she's with because, I mean, Jonathan and Steve, they're both, I love them both individually as characters and as young men. But I'm for the girls, you know, and I think every girl, every woman is too good to be with a man. But like, she's an Aries rising, the most badass bitch placement maybe in astrology history. She's gonna do whatever the fuck she wants, regardless of what anyone thinks or wants her to do. Um, and I think sometimes the guys don't really get that. It's the 80s, they don't really get free independent women quite yet. You know, it's just kind of like an idea that is forming in their noggins. Love her so much. I'm gonna move on because I can't spend too much time talking about her rising, because there's another very big important placement here in the first house Aries, which is her Mars, which is her ruling planet. We're knocking two big ones out of the way immediately. So when you are an Aries or Scorpio rising, traditionally, astrology dictates that your ruling planet is Mars. This is the planet that, I think directs your life in a lot of ways, is a good way of putting that. It kind of directs the flow of energy in your life. So she has it in her fucking first house. And Mars is the planet of get up and go and action and all kinds of wonderful, fiery, action oriented things, which is why it is the ruling planet of Aries. Aries in Greek mythology is the god of war. Mars in Roman mythology is the god of war. So, you know, they are not two sides of the same coin. They're the whole coin. They're all of it. They're simultaneously both sides. So I think that this placement really just means that she's not afraid to go after what she wants. She's a feminist at heart and believes that she should have just as much rights as a man. I remember I read this episode after seeing a video that reminded me of some of the things in season 2, and one of those things is that her and Jonathan both work for that little newspaper in Hawkins, and they both get fired because they're late too many times, because they sleep in, because they're fucking all night. Yeah, they both get fired, and she and Jonathan have this huge fucking argument, which is the crux of why I don't think that they should be together. It felt like the beginning of the end to me. They have this huge fucking argument in Jonathan's car, and she's going on about how like they were treating her like a secretary, like an assistant, and they weren't like treating her stories seriously, and they gave Jonathan like all of these things to do, and he basically is like, "'Cause you're a woman, duh, are you fucking stupid?" That's not what he says, but that's basically what he says, and that's how I think Nancy takes it. And she gets really upset and she gets really sad, and then she would much rather quit and be back to square one than have to be humiliated daily while trying to go after what she wants, which I think is very evident here. Like, this placement is not the kind of placement that takes disrespect. They would rather make everything harder for themselves than deal with people disrespecting them to their face. I don't think like Nancy would enjoy knowing that people talk smack about her behind her back either. But for, I think, other reasons of her character and in her birth chart, she would not like go out of her way to pick a fight with somebody she knew was talking shit about her behind her back. But this is a placement that would potentially have that influence. It's kind of giving like in Harry Potter when Hermione punches Draco in the fucking face. That scene is hilarious to me, and people always talk about it as like a scene like, oh, like she broke character, but I think that moment of just like this person who would never have done that before, just like, you know what, I'm fucking tired of this bully, and punching the bully in the face, that's a very Mars and Aries first house kind of moment to me, if that makes any sense to you guys at all. I did not put my phone on silent and now it's buzzing. Stop that. Who's talking to me? Oh, okay. My Discord is talking about turdunkins, so I'm just gonna ignore that. Okay. Next placement. The next placement is also in the Aries first house. Don't do too much on my girl, okay? This placement is why I don't think that she would like intentionally go out of her way to pick a fight with somebody who she knew didn't like her. Saturn in Aries in the first house. This placement is in fall, which means that Saturn doesn't really like being in Aries, because Aries is Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is the trailblazer. It is moving forward, first in line, always. Saturn rules two of the last signs in the zodiac, Capricorn and Aquarius. It's holding back. It's watching what everybody else does. It's making very calculated, strategic movements. So it does not like being in Aries, because Aries will just plow through and then take whatever consequences comes after. They're like, whatever, you know, shit was bound to happen. Saturn don't like that shit. It definitely makes Nancy attempt to make her personage palatable to others based on her environments. So this is like first season, second season, she's trying really hard to fit in. She's just as much of a weirdo as her little brother, but she's trying to hide it. Except she can't hide it anymore when her best friend goes missing and is dead. And then like all kinds of weird shit start happening to her family because her little brother found a magic girl. So she like really wants people to like her and think that she's normal, think that her family is normal, and all of that kind of stuff. But that is not the lesson of Saturn. Saturn is inflicting this kind of restraint around her self-image, not letting her, like other people, I think, can kind of see who Nancy Wheeler is, but Nancy Wheeler doesn't even, at the beginning of the show, doesn't even really know who Nancy Wheeler is either. It's, something that she's struggling to come to grips with a lot. She sees all of these people who she doesn't want to be like, but there's no one in the world who is like who she wants to be, because she's an Aries rising. It's that, we're still in the Aries first house. It's all of those things. But I do think that her crafting, molding herself around what she thinks will be most pleasing to different people in different scenarios is something that she begins to grow out of and stops doing. And I do think that in season 2, the experience that she had working for the little newspaper was a big sign to her. I think it was a lesson for sure, and it was maybe the first instance showing her that maybe she did not want to be, queen bee of the school, or one of those popular pretty girls. Like, she didn't care about that anymore. And then we see her just take over the fucking school newspaper, and she in season 4 is the top dog. She's the editor of the school newspaper, and she's telling other people what to do, and that does get one of those kids killed. But you know, R.I.P. whatever his name was. Y'all know what I'm talking. You know who I'm talking about? That little nerdy guy that she was making run around with her for school newspaper reasons when all of those kids were dying and Max was about to die. Yeah. fun times. Y'all remember that? Okay, so yeah, she's like super cool, but she doesn't think she's super cool, and that's basically the first house. Let's see, does she have any houses, or does she have any placements in the second house? She does not. So we're moving on to the third house. Second house was in Taurus. All of our houses will be in the order of the zodiac. So first house Aries, second house Taurus, third house Gemini, fourth house Cancer, so on, etc. Just to keep in mind. So if you know the order of the zodiac, you'll know what zodiac sign rules each of her houses, because it's you know, the traditional one, because she's an Aries rising, because she's so cool. Okay. Third house in Gemini. I gave her a Gemini sun, because why wouldn't I? She's the queen of the chisme. She's the queen of snooping a story. She is Nancy Wheeler, aka Nancy Drew. She's a detective. She's just always out there looking for a story. She has all the connections and is capable of stringing things together in a way that no one else is capable of, except maybe Dustin or Robin. But nobody has the same experiences as Nancy, and nobody has the same like social life that Nancy does. Like Robin and Dustin are around as smart as Nancy is, Dustin less so. But they're both really socially awkward, and sometimes like Nancy can predict the way people will respond to things in a way that Dustin and Robin can't, and therefore Nancy has better insight and can better respond to situations and really just get that scoop that she wants so bad. I think that with the sun in Gemini, this kind of makes her think of herself in a pretty like highbrow intellectual manner above anything else, but she kind of also sees herself as a wild card, which Geminis often are, because of the twin aspect of Gemini, the duality. There is a side to Nancy that she is aware exists but doesn't know all the details of, and can prompt her in moments to act in ways that maybe she wouldn't have otherwise. This can sometimes be brought out by the people that she's around. I think Steve is a pretty good example of the side of Nancy that can get brought out sometimes. Not Steve season 1 or 2, but season 4, I think. And I mean, this is Jonathan's like whole deal, is that he makes Nancy like acknowledge a deeper, darker kind of side of herself. I believe, I don't know what order these episodes are going to come out, but just to give you a taste, if it hasn't come out already, I do believe I make Jonathan a Scorpio. I think I've recorded that episode already. It's just waiting to be edited. So you know, Scorpio tings. All right. Let's see. So that's her sun. Do I need to talk about what the sun stands for? I should probably talk about what the third house stands for at the very least. Third house, communication. It's all of the things that Gemini is, because it's the house that Gemini rules traditionally. Communication, social ability, thinking, connections, like close nearby personal connections, physically close, all of those kinds of things. Okay, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna really get through this in Aries rising manner. It's already been almost 20 fucking minutes. Okay, she has her Mercury in the third house in Gemini, of course, domicile placement. I love her. I'm giving her all of the like good, best placements. Does not stop the trauma from arriving. No, it does not. So like, okay, Mercury, Gemini, third house. She's literally a journalist. You know, I had to do it to him. I had to get had to give this to her. When she's prepared, she's an effective communicator. She almost always has her talking points lined up, but she gets choked up when she goes to speak sometimes. I think her moon and Venus will kind of have something to do with this. Those are the notes I wrote. Do I have any other thoughts about this? I mean, I kind of said it with her sun sign too. Just like she can make all kinds of connections. She's very witty and quick with her thinking in a way that a lot of the others are not. Yeah, that's Nancy Wheeler's start. She's very straightforward, I think. I think all of these placements are very like straightforward. So speaking of her moon and Venus, we're going to move on to the fourth house in Cancer, where she does have her Venus and her Jupiter. I think I wrote very little notes on this because, again, I feel like it's so straightforward. Her Venus in Cancer fourth house, I just think that she's such a love bug. Like, she truly at her core is a very loving, sweet person. It is the situations and circumstances which have made her hard. I think that Venus's war aspect rears her head here in this house in Cancer, in that, you know, Mars rules her chart and has a very close connection with Venus. And I think Nancy Wheeler would die defending her family. I think she would literally die. I think she would sacrifice herself, put her life on the line between her and Demogorgon, like putting herself between Demogorgons and her family, always. Her father would not do anything. Her mother would desperately plead with her to not do that. Mike would dissociate immediately because he can't defend himself and he sure as fuck can't defend his family. But Nancy, the Glock Wheeler, is always strapped and always ready. And I think she would die defending her family because she loves them that much. And if she thinks of you as family, she would die defending you. And I think there are very few people who she feels that for. I think she does kind of feel that way for the young girls, Max and 11. I think that she would very much so do the same thing for them. I wish there were more stories with the girlies in this show. I know it's made and written by men and it's set in the 80s where women don't matter, but I would desperately love some more fun stories between the girlies. Like, we got one mall day with Max and 11 and that was it. Like, yeah, Robin and Nancy go like break in and try to like interview somebody in a mental hospital and an asylum, but like that's not fun girly things. That's for the plot. That's literally for the plot. I want fun girly things. I think Nancy would like fun girly things too, with her Venus Cancer fourth house. Next placement, also in the fourth house, Jupiter. Jupiter is in exaltation in Cancer. Something about the moon and manifesting and Jupiter get along together really well. I think that this placement just amplifies the amount of love and fierce protection she feels over her family, and I think she's more than willing to expand the family label to others. I do think that she became a lot more guarded after Barb died, because Barbara was like the sister she never had. They were so close and so cute. I love Barb. Justice for Barb till the day I die, bro. I think that she thinks of the people who she's gone through all of the upside down stuff with. She thinks of them as kind of her family too. And I do think that she would go to great lengths to protect and defend all of them, both from physical danger and social danger. Yeah, I think that if she ever hears anybody saying that her brother's weird now, she would be like, get my brother's name out your fucking mouth before I slap you. Not that she would ever actually do that, but like she would think very hard about it. And if she was having a bad day, there's a chance she would do it. The last point I have about this placement is that I think this Jupiter in Cancer, fourth house, with it amplifying Venus and the IC, I'm actually not going to say it, Imam Coli, I said it. It can also make Nancy more empathetic and emotional than would be inferred from her moon sign. Because I believe I gave her an air moon, and air moons, speaking from experience, are notoriously bad at being in touch with their emotions. If you have a Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius moon, welcome to the club. We suck at dealing with our emotions in a way that is actually beneficial and healthy. We out here intellectualizing them bitches every second of every day. So with Jupiter here in this house with her Venus and her IC, I do think that she has a better time getting in touch with her emotions and has an easier time expressing empathy for others than most air moons are capable of doing. And with that is her fourth house. So we're going to keep it trucking along. She has no placements in the fifth house, which is Leo, but she does have some outer planets in the sixth house, which we will get into. The sixth house is in Virgo. Okay, we should be able to speed through this fairly quickly. In the Virgo sixth house, we have two outer planets. The first one being Uranus. I think that she's very meticulous about her preparation for the supernatural happenstance of the Upside Down. When they're in the Upside Down, and they're in the version of Hawkins that exists in the Upside Down, she goes to her bedroom to get her guns. She has two guns. Two. Not just one, two. They just wants to be prepared. She's like, I know guns work on these things. Let's go get my guns. They should be here in this version of the Upside Down, but they're not, because it's a version of Hawkins that's in the past. Also, I think that with Uranus in the sixth house, she is very accustomed to changes and last minute readjustments, and the way that things in a very human way never go exactly the way that you want them to. She's very attuned to that, and so she doesn't ever let a wrinkle in the plan shake her. She's constantly pivoting and just like, okay, we can still get to this end goal, but we have to go a different route now, so let's go through my list of backup plans. Plan A didn't work, plan B isn't gonna work, let's jump to plan E, because I think that this is the closest to that scenario that we are currently. She's crazy, a little, just very, I feel like she's just very particular, very meticulous, very detailed, and sometimes very detailed people scare me. Okay, next planet, Pluto, also in Virgo, fifth house. This planet is potentially in fall in Virgo. This is debated among astrologers. There's no clear consensus quite yet. So I'm just going to leave that little tidbit of information there, and we're going to move on without really taking that into account. I think that with Pluto in the sixth house, it has influenced her life in such a way that the way that her daily life has been changed are from traumatic events, and irreversible, lifelong, possibly debilitating changes have to be made. I don't want to fearmonger people from Pluto. A lot of the change that Pluto brings can sometimes be very, very necessary. But I think in the sixth house, it can be particularly draining and particularly traumatic. because the sixth house is the house of your daily life, your routine, your schedule, and your physical health and well-being. Pluto in the sixth house can, I don't actually know this for sure, but with those themes in mind, I feel like Pluto in the sixth house can denote some kind of like chronic illness or disease that you may have been born with or develop along the way. Yeah, I don't think it's fun, but I don't want people to be terrified of Pluto, because I don't think it's always like that depending on the placement. However, with Uranus and Pluto here, she has become more accustomed to change and more capable of bouncing back than maybe anybody else in the series, to be truthful with you. There's also something to be said about her burnout and the intensity of her perm with this placement. I don't know if you guys have seen that Stranger Things interview with the wig stylist. The wig stylist talks about how as the seasons progress, Nancy's perm gets like bigger and not more unmanageable, but it's longer lasting. Like, she doesn't have time to deal with her hair, so she just keeps getting it permed and curled, so she doesn't have to do anything and can just get up and go. A little bit of that Aries impatience shining its head here. And it's also like the wig is also like a symbol of Nancy's burnout and how intense it gets. She doesn't have time to deal with her hair anymore, to take care of herself. She doesn't have time to take care of herself anymore because she's burning out, and she's doing everything she can to make sure that not only she stays alive, but her family and her friends stay alive, and her brother's friends stay alive, and also that maybe they have a chance of a good future if they make it there. And I think that the fault of a lot of characters in Stranger Things is that once they've made contact with the Upside Down, they're incapable of thinking of a future where that is no longer permeating their lives. Like, I know Will, 11, and Winona Ryder, why can't I remember her name, all leave and go to California, but it follows them there still because Will and 11 have been touched by the Upside Down in a way that the others have not. And so I think that, like, even then, because they're all touched by the Upside Down, even when they're in California, they can't think of a future without it. And they know that it's still there. But Nancy can envision a future without it because there was a past that didn't have it. So if there was a point where it didn't exist, I think that she believes that there's a point where it can no longer exist in the future. So that gives her a little bit of hope, but she's the only one who has that hope, and so it's kind of hard to maintain it in a healthy way. Okay. She has one placement in her 7th house of Libra, which is her moon sign. She's not as closed off or emotionally distant. She's not as closed off or emotionally distant as air moons usually are, but she's just rather very selective in the moments she chooses to display emotion. She's very careful about who she displays what emotions around, and whether or not she's good at assessing whether or not it is safe to do so in those moments. And she's very good at stopping herself from expressing emotion if she deems it is unsafe, unnecessary, or just not the right time. The moon often represents the mother in birth charts in astrology, and I do think that her mom, Mrs. Wheeler, could be a Libra, to be honest, and I think that the moon represents the fact that her mother tries hard to be fair to both of her children and her husband and the world / the neighborhood, but she's also not afraid to break rules when the rules fucking suck. And I think that that is something that Nancy does get from her mom. I think that they're both kind of, rule oriented. But they also know enough to know that humans make mistakes, and sometimes rules aren't actually helpful. They're just a hindrance. I mean, Nancy Nancy makes a sawed-off shotgun and then tells Max, I think this is a felony. So she's clearly not afraid of breaking a rule when it needs to be broken. I think that with this placement, she's very affected by the emotions of those around her and has to make a point of trying to ignore how others feel in order to get done what she thinks needs to get done. She is so good at ignoring her own feelings, and I think that she can't quite understand how other people aren't capable of doing the same thing, especially when it's like life or death and there's like a lot of things that need to get done, and you know, you're on a timeline, you have a deadline. She just doesn't get it. She just doesn't get why other people can't just turn it off, and I think it might honestly fucking irritate her. Because there's like so many parts of her that want to be attuned to how others are feeling and to like be there and make space for them, but like sometimes you don't have the time or the space to do any of that, and you guys have to fucking go because there are monsters after you, and nobody else is making any decisions because everybody else is panicked. So Nancy has to be the one to remain cool, calm, and collected in order to figure the fuck out what they're gonna do. That's her only placement in the 7th house, but I think it is kind of an intense one. You know, it's directly opposite her Mars in the 1st house, and I think that is significant. I think that her emotions and her drive and ambition are often at odds with each other, and it makes for, you know, very complicated life and situations that she puts herself in. Scorpio, 8th house, we got Neptune. All right, she is the queen of worst case scenarios, could win an award in overthinking and overanalyzing. Neptune is the planet of delusion, imagination, spirituality, all kinds of like Piscean things, right? The 8th house is the house of transformation, change, death, other people's money, taboo kind of like topics. You know, we often put sex here, and like things of that nature. So there's a lot of unconscious, subconscious like energies in this house with Neptune here in the 8th house, and it's in Scorpio. So I think that there's a lot of like stuff that is shrouding this house, but mostly what it results in is Nancy just spinning the wheels of her head so fast and so furiously, and without letting anybody or anything else get a word in edgewise. She thinks very deeply. She's a very cerebral person, and sometimes things aren't that deep, but fuck, when Nancy's right about the depth, she is right. I think that this placement is why that she consistently has some of the best ideas and the best plans. You got that Neptunian creativity and imagination mixed with the Scorpio tendency to perceive every little detail and create something that it wants. Again, Scorpio is also ruled by Mars. It is about the drive, about the ambition, about going after what it wants. All of those things, which is, you know, one of the reasons why she likes Jonathan, because in a way that's how he is. He's kind of a burnout now, but for a while he, you know, was just doing whatever the fuck he wanted, and she liked that because she wanted to do that because it was written into her soul and her birth chart, and now she's doing it and he's not, and she's like, fuck this guy. She's not actually like that, but like she should be. Yeah, so that's the fucking Neptune in Scorpio 8th house. She doesn't have any placements in the 9th, 10th, or 12th house. She has one placement in the 11th house, which is in Aquarius, and the placement is Chiron. That's the last. This is the last placement. Chiron, in the 11th house of Aquarius. The 11th house is social groups, friends, community, things in that realm, that hemisphere. It's large groups of people, socializing, parties, stuff like that. Chiron is a asteroid, and it typically represents a part of you that was hurt very, very young, and you healed with great, tremendous difficulty, that now you wish to help others heal. It is colloquially known as the wounded healer. So this is in Aquarius 11th house. My first note is, dude, her best friend literally was the second ever victim to the upside down. Which I think is kind of hilarious that I said it like that, because the first one was Henry Creel. 11 put him there, and the second person was Barb. That's what we saw anyways. Or was it Will? I think it was Will. I think she's the third person. I think she's the third person to be the victim to the upside down, because Will went missing before. But I mean, Barbara is the only one who didn't make it out alive out of these first three. So she and Mike both kind of experienced this again, because Will went missing, but Mike got his friend back. I think that Nancy feels a sort of responsibility to help ensure that this kind of thing doesn't ever happen again to her or her brothers, friends, or anybody. And I think that because of the way that her first house is, Nancy has a difficult time making friends to begin with. And after Barb dies, she has an even more difficult time. She just can't let anybody in. She doesn't have friends so much as she has colleagues, which is very much giving the kind of Aquarian detachment that I know us Aquarius ruled people are often very capable of having a very detached person too. I get it, girl. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the episode. I hope you all enjoyed this 45 fucking minute long episode about Nancy Wheeler. So with that, I will leave you all with reminders. You can find everything related to Astrophic and me in the link tree in the show notes, including my Etsy shop where I sell tarot readings. As of recording, I am thinking about adding birth chart readings to my Etsy shop, but I'm having some trouble updating my shop listings, so I have to talk to Etsy support. If you have something you'd really like to add to the conversation, I'd love it if you left a voice note. They're about a minute long, and who knows, maybe I'll include your voice note in a future episode. Don't forget to leave a rating or review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and tell your friends about me. You've been listening to Astrophic, your favorite astrology podcast, hosted by me, Celeste V. Don't forget to leave a rating or review, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Love you. Bye.